Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is GullYY here. Welcome back to another epic Polytopia video. Recently, there was a beta update posted on Polytopia's Steam webpage, so we're going to be going through all the changes that are going to be made. Keep in mind this update is in beta, so some things might change whenever it actually releases, but this gives us a good idea as to what might be coming in the actual game here soon. I'm going to be going through all the changes, I'll give you my thoughts, and then we'll go from there. This is all intro stuff we don't really care about. So the first major change that's coming to the game is that all units now have detect. Originally, only Mindbenders and other cloaks had the detect ability, which allowed them to notice any adjacent invisible units, but now we've given that ability to all units. While it won't immediately reveal any cloaks, you'll get a hint that one is around, and multiple units can be used to pinpoint where exactly one is. We've also improved the detect symbol so that it's easier to read. Mindbenders don't get any consolation prizes for no longer being unique, but we'll probably give them some love in the future. We made this change to address the complaints about cloaks being hard to counter since you couldn't see/detect them well. This should give defending players an edge when trying to find enemy cloaks, while also not making a cloak stealth instantly nullified and thus worthless. I don't have any problems with this change. I think it's an alright change. You can see in this picture here, the rider and the warriors all have the detect symbol. It means there's a cloak on this center tile here. Previously, yeah, I thought cloaks were pretty difficult to counter because you couldn't see where they are. And I wasn't about to just get diplomacy or philosophy to see where they are. So being able to detect them with just normal units is pretty nice. Alright, now this is where things get spicy. Changes to cloaks. Not to be outdone, cloaks have gotten some nifty upgrades that should allow them to bypass the newly improved enemy defenses. While it may be easier for enemies to spot them, it's now also easier for the cloaks to evade a defending player's army with the addition of the Scout and Creep abilities. Scout means that when they move across land, they'll reveal an extra tile. It's like stepping onto a mountain. And Creep means they get no movement penalties from rough terrain. And I believe that also means they can no longer use roads, because I think Creep also negates roads along with rough terrain. I'm not entirely sure. The two of these will allow them to see and sneak around enemies, or scout out an enemy's empire without fear. We knew that giving every unit detect was a super hard nerf to the cloak, so we wanted to make sure that the cloaks got some buffs to match. There should now be a more dynamic cat and mouse game between players, which keeps the experience more interesting overall. I'm not sure if this is a good or bad change. We'll just kind of have to see how it plays out. I feel like now it's going to be pretty difficult to hit an enemy city with a cloak, which it should be, especially if they can't move across roads, but I think that is overall probably a good change. The whole scout thing, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. I'll have to try it out in a game. Alright, now this is where things get especially spicy. Improvements to infiltration. In addition to the buffs that cloaks have gotten, we've indirectly buffed them by making infiltration a bit more punishing. Many fans claim that using cloaks well didn't have as much of an impact as it should have, so we have made some adjustments to keep the high risk, high reward gameplay more relevant. I actually disagree. Whenever you hit a city with a cloak, you cut its income and spawn a bunch of daggers. Daggers are already pretty strong because when they hit a unit, they don't get retaliated against, so I thought they were pretty fair beforehand, but here's the changes that they made. So it's gotten some buffs. Infiltration will damage any units inside the city. A city's innate income will be stolen by the infiltrating player, not just blocked, and daggers will spawn inside a city if there is no unit defending it, or if the unit is killed by infiltration. Those three buffs are pretty nuts. Not only do you hit a city and spawn a bunch of daggers, you damage any unit that an opponent has in the city, and if that unit dies, a dagger will spawn in the city and start sieging it. And not only is the city's income cut completely for a turn, but the person who hit with the cloak gains that income for a turn. So if there's a level 4 city with workshop, it's making, what, 6 stars per turn? You hit it with a cloak, which is an 8-star unit, I'm pretty sure, and then you gain that city's income next turn. So basically, for 2 stars, you're getting the daggers, you're damaging any unit in their city, and you're also spawning a dagger in their city if there's no unit in it. That's pretty nuts, but let's look at the nerfs. Cities can only be infiltrated once per turn. Okay, that's a good change. Daggers created on the water are turned into pirates, which can't be upgraded into battleships. It was pretty annoying prior to this update when you'd have a city on the front line just get hit with 4 cloaks in one turn. So I think only having a city get hit once per turn is completely fair. Since it's now a lot more difficult to get into a high priority city, we wanted to make sure the reward was worth it if you did. Star stealing, injuring defending units, and making it easier to capture undefended cities should help encourage the taking of larger cities, either by themselves or as part of a larger offensive push. To compensate, you can't conga line cloaks into a city for massive amounts of daggers, and the daggers that do get spawned on the water are weaker. So I'm not sure about the whole stealing an opponent's income, but I think the other changes are alright, I don't have any problems with those. The addition of pirates. As mentioned in the previous point, a common complaint was how any daggers that spawned on the water could be turned into battleships with no penalty, allowing for a massive spike of power in the area if you had the stars for it. Also, to better align them with the relationship between cloaks and dinghies, we've given the dagger its own water variant, the pirate. It has stats identical to a dagger, including the surprise trait, just like how the dinghy has stats identical to the cloak. So think of them less as new naval units and more as water forms of cloaks and daggers. Again, I don't have any problems with that change, I think that's fine. Besides trying to fix the issues with battleships, dinghies and pirates exist so that cloaks and daggers are as effective on water as they are on land. We didn't want people to not use them just because there was water in the way, so these forms are our way of ensuring they see use, even on archipelago or waterworld maps. So that's all the major changes with cloaks and daggers and all that. Only thing I really have a problem with is the whole stealing income. That seems pretty nuts, but I mean, I haven't tried it yet, so we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. Alright, now we have some other general balance changes. Start with Simonsa. Explosion damage has been reduced by 50%, and fungi no longer do damage while poisoning. Simonsa is often considered a little strong and difficult to fight at times, so we're trying to balance out their offensive and defensive power. Fungi don't deal damage, but will still poison, so Simonsa City should be easier to assault. The explosion nerf should encourage the use of more units than just the Dumix. This explosion nerf should also mean that poison is spread better, which in turn means more fungi/algae on the map. We'll be keeping an eye on whether or not this change nerfs them too much. So honestly, I don't play enough Simonsa to know if the explosion nerf is good or not. 50% seems like a big number, but again, I'm not going to talk about stuff that I don't know. I really just need to play more Simonsa. Fungi no longer dealing damage from poisoning, that does seem like a good change because prior to that, it was pretty difficult to get into Simonsa cities, especially if they were like bridged off through 1 or 2 tile land bridges and you had to walk across the fungi in order to get into them. Aquarion! Oh my gosh, Aquarion's getting a buff. Crabs now have 2 movement. Yes, Aquarion fans, the first buff for your favorite unit since they were first added to Polytopia. We plan to do a proper buff for Aquarion in the future, but for now, we've decided to fix this clear injustice. Thank God. Aquarion crabs were so bad, but now they have 2 movement. That's just an objectively good change. It's about time that Aquarion gets something. Poor Aquarion's the butt end of every joke. Well, you know, them and Hoodrick, but I digress. And it looks like we are still getting an Aquarion buff in the future. So, I mean, that'll happen when it happens, I guess. They've been talking about that for a while. And now for Polaris. Ice Bank max cap increased to 30. We were informed that on larger maps, especially ones with water, customs houses were far better than ice banks, and we wanted to make sure that the effectiveness of the ice bank wouldn't be hindered by map size. So to make things more consistent and give Polaris players a constant incentive to expand their icy domain, we raised the cap to 30. That should be more than enough to cover a massive map. Are they talking about the level cap on the ice bank is increased to 30? What was it beforehand? Like level 10 would be max and you get 3 stars per level? I think the maximum amount of income an ice bank would be 90 stars per turn, which that's fair. At a certain point the ice bank does cap out, and if you're on a large map and the other player's using customs houses, which you can just get 1 per city, then yeah, that makes sense that customs houses would be a lot better. So I think this is a fine change. And now for some general stuff. Reduce the amount of income when meeting a tribe, 1 star less per level. So you know how you get stars for meeting a tribe? If they're under 1,000 points, you get 3 stars. If they're between 1,000 and 2,000, you get 6 stars, etc. Well, instead of 3, 6, 9, 12, it's now 2, 4, 6, 8. The AI is now better at trying to reveal cloaks. Very good. You will heal 4 HP in ally territory instead of 2 HP. Also a nice change. Reducing the amount of stars gained from meeting tribes was only to help early game scaling. You shouldn't see too much of a gameplay difference. We've also improved how AI try to find cloaks, and fixed a bug where you weren't fully healing an ally territory like you should have been. Yeah, I think those 3 changes are fine. We'll have to see how the reduced income affects early gameplay. And any improvements to the AI I'm also always happy to see. And in conclusion, we hope that these changes to diplomacy make cloaks and daggers both more fun to play with and play against. We'll be keeping a close eye on these changes in the future and might make adjustments if necessary. We'd like to hear your thoughts on this patch, so please tell us what you think either here or on the official Polytopia Discord. Joke's on you guys. I'm offering my thoughts on YouTube. And finally, there are some steps to join the beta. And if you're curious, here's the full changelog. So again, this update is still in beta, so some things might change, but overall, I think this update addresses a lot of the issues with the game right now, especially with regards to cloaks and infiltration. I'm glad that they're making cloaks less spammy and more high risk, high reward, where prior to that, it was basically you could spam cloaks and just keep smacking cities and just get an army of daggers, which I don't really think is how they were intended to be used. So now if your city gets hit, it's a bit more costly, which I think that's fair. I'm still not sure about the whole stealing stars thing, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. And then, of course, the balance adjustments, 2 movement for crab, ice bank cap increased to 30. That's all fine and good. I don't have any problems with that. So yeah, really, I'm just excited to try this update out. I'm probably going to get the Steam beta and do a game or two and just see how it feels. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you all did enjoy this video. If you did, be sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe for more epic Polytopia videos. And if you want to support me and the channel directly, you can become a channel member by hitting the join button down below. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a spectacular day.